And believe it or not, the hardest part was physically eating that amount of food. I had to put on about 17 pounds. It was crazy. I mean, aside from the training, the hardest part was eating, you know? You just have to eat a ton of calories. And it was all hard calories. It was a lot of chicken breast. I was eating so much chicken breast that the hardest part about it was actually chewing it all. So I would just put it into a blender, blend it all up, and just drink chicken. Isn't that gross?
I've never heard of someone blending chicken.
If you spent any time at all in the fitness community, you've probably heard the phrase bulking before. Anyone that seriously pursues fitness will be familiar with this term, as it is extremely common. But as common as this term may be, there have always been a lot of misconceptions and gray areas around bulking, or so it may seem. First of all, what even is bulking? Now, many of you watching will probably jump to answering this by saying something along the lines of, it's a period of time where you increase calories above maintenance in order to gain as much strength and size as possible. Now, while this may be true, there are many different kinds of bulking that more or less do not follow suit with this description.
In theory, the purpose of bulking is to put on quality muscle mass over the winter in order to shred down over the summer. And the fact is that bulking is just an excuse to be lazy on your diet, see how much you can improve your bench, and see how much unrestricted, low-quality weight you can slop onto your body. Which if you ask me, you can do a lot.
This is an extremely popular kind of bulking, where the goal is to put on as much size and strength as possible. The method of achieving this is by having a very large caloric surplus, basically eating as much as you can. The downsides of this approach are excess fat gain, increased health risks, and sluggishness. But the benefits are gaining muscle and strength as fast as possible, right? Well, there's solid reason to believe that upon increasing calories upon a certain point, extra muscle gained is minimal and unnoticeable, meaning all of these calories are turned into fat, making there no reason to actually increase calories along this point. The reason being is that no matter how many calories you eat to fuel muscle growth, you can only stimulate a limited amount of muscle fibers through training, meaning that they will only use a limited amount of energy, calories, and protein to repair them and make them stronger. This process is called hypertrophy. A reason people believe that eating the most amount of calories possible will lead to the most amount of muscle possible is due to the strength that comes along increasing one's body weight. Here's an example. Who do you think lifts more? Person A, an 165-pound man with 20 pounds of muscle and 10% body fat. Or person B, a 200-pound man with 20 pounds of muscle and 25% body fat. Everyone who has a brain would choose person B, the 200-pound man, even though they had the same amount of muscle mass. The reason being, if you put on more weight, fat or muscle, you will end up moving more overall weight in general. People think that their strength increase on a dirty bulk correlates to muscle growth, when in reality, it's simply because they are becoming heavier and can move more total weight.
First, I want to show you guys what my macro targets are going to be for today. I've got 225 grams of protein, 75 grams of fat, and 300 grams of carbs. And that will give me an approximate caloric target of 2,800 calories per day while maintaining the amount of fat that I have on me. So my goal is to build as much lean mass as possible while minimizing the amount of fat mass that I gain.
Lean bulking is another very popular kind of bulking, where the goal is to put on as much muscle and strength as possible, all while keeping fat gain to a minimum. The method of achieving this is by entering a caloric surplus, but not too large of one, in order to avoid any excess fat gain. It's debated what the best surplus of calories is for a lean bulk, but the general consensus is 200 to 500 calories above maintenance. This doesn't mean that anything outside of this range won't get the job done. You'll just have to experiment and find out what works best for you. The downsides of this approach is that it may be tricky and take a few weeks to find your maintenance calories, and then having to figure out how large of a surplus to enter. The benefit of this approach is being able to gain as much muscle and strength as possible while keeping body fat gain to a minimum. Unless you only care about moving as much weight as possible, when executed correctly, I don't see any reason not to choose a lean bulk over a dirty bulk. Now, while you won't gain nearly as much body fat as going on a dirty bulk would, don't expect to gain any body fat at all. A common mistake I see a lot of lifters make during a lean bulk is that they don't expect any fat gain at all. And once they notice any amount of fat they put on, they start second guessing themselves and sometimes lower calories or even start a cut.
You gotta eat big to get big. You gotta eat big to get big. Big to get big to get big to get big to get big.
If you're one of these people that are happy with your amount of body fat and wouldn't mind staying lean, even if it meant getting bigger and stronger was a slower process, maingaining is an approach you should consider.
I hate bulking. I'm against bulking. You think that you need to bulk up to put on muscle, eat big to get big, shove force feed to add muscle. You can't add muscle without eating a normal diet.
Maingaining is an alternative approach to bulking that isn't quite considered bulking, but it's worth covering. It's a method of muscle building that was popularized by fitness coach, IFBB pro bodybuilder, and internet personality Greg Doucette. The goal of maingaining is to stay at the same level of body fat while putting on a slow amount of muscle over a long period of time. To achieve this, find your maintenance calories and do not enter a surplus nor deficit. Stay at maintenance. The downsides of this approach are that it takes considerably longer to put on muscle and strength when compared to bulking. But Greg argues that most, if not all, extra muscle and strength gained from a bulk when compared to maingaining will just be lost next time you have to cut. Although it may be true that you lose some strength next time you have to cut, that may just be due to extra body fat you were carrying or due to less energy being in your system while on a cut. No actual technical strength or muscle loss. And the claim that you lose the extra muscle you gained from bulking on a cut is also questionable, if not proven entirely false. Can you build muscle while in a caloric surplus? Some of you may be surprised, but the answer is actually yes. As long as you have a high protein intake of around 1 gram per pound of body weight, you should be able to build muscle while on a cut, as long as the caloric deficit isn't too drastic. So this means if you really want to lose body weight and put on muscle at the same time, being in a slight caloric deficit is the best move for you, but I'll cover that in a future video. Now that I've gone over different kinds of bulking, which do you think would fulfill your goals? I may have painted dirty bulking in a bit of bad lighting, but if you really want to increase strength fast, go for it. Just please consider your health while doing so. Lean bulking is overall the best approach to bulking in my opinion. If you can find the right surplus to enter, you won't gain weight too fast, and you'll be able to maximize your muscle growth. That is, if you execute everything properly. Maingaining is also a solid approach if you aren't too serious about gaining a ton of muscle or strength, but just want to look better and be healthier in the long term. If you want to know more about any of these dieting methods, be sure to subscribe, because I will be uploading videos in the future that go into further depth in each of these topics. But that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and keep on pumping.